Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. My life feels like something out of a movie, a dramatic, heartbreaking sob story that I never saw coming. What was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life turned into a nightmare that I still can't fully process. My little sister's wedding should have been a joyous occasion, a celebration of love and new beginnings, but instead it became a breaking point in my marriage. The tension between Frank and me reached an unbearable level, leading to hurtful words and actions I never expected from him. The chaos that followed left me feeling emotionally drained and disconnected from the people I love most. I never imagined that something so silly, something so insignificant in the grand scheme of things could cause such a rift between us, one that would change our lives forever. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Megan. I've been married to Frank for the past 5 years. I grew up in a traumatic environment, constantly witnessing my parents argue and tear each other down. That kind of childhood leaves a mark. And I knew early on that I wanted a partner who was mature, emotionally steady, and understanding. I found all of that in Frank. His calm demeanor and wisdom became a source of comfort for me, helping me heal from the past. We built a relationship on respect, trust, and unwavering support. That's why I always believed that no matter what, we could face anything together. My little sister Kelly was getting married, and I couldn't have been happier for her. She was 8 years younger than me, and from the time she was born, I had taken on the role of her protector through all of life's ups and downs. I had always looked out for her, making sure she never felt alone. So when she asked Frank and me to take care of the wedding preparations since we were the only family she had, I didn't hesitate. "Of course, Kelly," I told her, beaming with excitement. "You don't have to worry about a thing. I'll make sure this is the best day of your life." She hugged me tightly. "I knew you'd say that. I wouldn't trust anyone else with it." Frank was just as enthusiastic. "It's a big day, and she deserves the best," he said, giving me an encouraging smile. "We'll make sure everything is perfect." His support meant the world to me. If there was one thing I was sure of, it was that I could always count on him with that reassurance. I threw myself into planning, determined to do everything I could for my sister, together. Frank and I poured our hearts into planning Kelly's wedding, determined to make it the most beautiful and unforgettable day of her life. With his support and my determination, we spent countless hours making sure every detail was perfect, from choosing the venue to selecting the flowers and finalizing the menu. Every decision felt significant because this wasn't just any wedding. It was my little sister's big day, and I wanted nothing but the best for her. 2 weeks before the wedding, I flew to Detroit to help Kelly with her dress and the final preparations. It was just the two of us, like it had always been. We had been each other's rock through every hardship, every difficult turn in life, and this moment was no different. I promised myself that I would do whatever it took to ease her stress and make the process enjoyable for her. "Are you sure you don't mind handling all of this?" Kelly asked one evening as we sat surrounded by wedding planners, fabric swatches, and invitation samples. She looked exhausted, and I could tell the pressure was starting to weigh on her. I reached for her hand and squeezed it reassuringly. "Of course, Kel. You just focus on being happy. I've got this." She gave me a grateful smile, though the worry in her eyes lingered no matter how much she tried to hide it. I knew my sister well enough to see that she was feeling overwhelmed. That only made me more determined to make things as seamless as possible for her. Frank was supposed to join us a week later to help with the rest of the arrangements. Until then, I took on as much responsibility as I could, ensuring that everything was on track. I had never planned an event of this scale before, but I threw myself into it wholeheartedly. It was exhausting, but seeing Kelly smile whenever something fell into place made it all worth it. When Frank finally arrived, I felt an immense sense of relief. Having his help for the final stretch meant everything he was good at handling. Logistics and his calm presence balanced out the inevitable last-minute stress. With his assistance, we made sure that everything from the seating arrangements to the decorations was set for the big day. 5 days before the wedding, I looked around and felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Everything was coming together beautifully, even without any prior experience in event planning. It felt good to know that we had made it this far without any major issues. But 2 days before the wedding, Frank and I had a disagreement about the dress. 2 days before the wedding, Frank and I had a disagreement about the dress I planned to wear. He told me it was too revealing and suggested that it might not be appropriate for the occasion. "I don't think it's a good idea, Megan," he said, crossing his arms. "It's just too much. Maybe you could pick something a little more conservative." I sighed already, feeling the frustration bubbling inside me. "Frank, it's just a dress and it's Kelly's wedding." "Sheck, totally fine with it. She even encouraged me to wear it. I don't see what the big deal is." He shook his head. "You're a married woman. Do you really think it's appropriate to show up dressed like that?" His words stung. I couldn't believe we were having this argument over something as trivial as my outfit. Kelly and I had already talked about it, and she had reassured me that this was the perfect occasion to wear the dress. "You know what, Frank?" I said, my voice firm. "I'm going to wear it. It makes me feel good, and I want to feel confident on such a special day. This isn't about you. It's about me." Feeling comfortable and happy from that moment on, the tension between us was palpable. By the time the wedding day arrived, Frank had barely spoken to me. He had been upset from the moment I confirmed that I would be wearing the dress, and his cold behavior only escalated. We stopped talking completely, and it felt like he was deliberately punishing me for my decision. I couldn't understand why he was making such a big deal out of this. It was just a dress. Did he really think my choice of attire was worth ruining the entire day over? This was my sister's wedding, a moment I had spent weeks planning, and instead of celebrating with me, he chose to sulk like a child. I tried one last time to reason with him. "Frank, can we please just let this go? This day is important to me, and I don't want to spend it arguing over something." "So petty." He barely looked at me. "Do whatever you want, Megan. You already made your decision." That was the last real conversation we had that day throughout the wedding. He stayed distant, barely interacting with me or anyone else. He didn't join in the wedding games, didn't laugh, didn't even try to enjoy himself. It felt like he was just another guest who had been forced to be there rather than my husband. My partner, who was supposed to be by my side, I watched him from a distance, growing more and more frustrated with every passing hour. How could he be this unbothered Ed? He knew how much this day meant to me, how much Kelly and I had been looking forward to it. I wanted her to see that marriage could be a beautiful thing, that love could be full of joy and support, but instead Frank was proving the opposite. No matter how much I tried to involve him, he remained distant and uninterested. It was as if he didn't care at all about making the day special for Kelly or for me. His lack of effort, his unwillingness to let go of something so trivial, made me start questioning his commitment to our relationship. Frank knew how much this wed meant to me and Kelly. We had grown up in a household where our parents constantly bickered, their fights filling our childhood with tension. Kelly had always been scared of marriage, convinced that it was nothing more than a lifelong battle of resentment. For years she had sworn off the idea of getting married, and honestly I couldn't blame her. But now her perspective had shifted. She had found someone who made her believe in love again. And I wanted nothing more than to support her. More than that, I wanted to show her that I too was happy, that marriage didn't have to be a cage. It could be something fulfilling, something beautiful. I stole a glance at Frank across the room, still distant, still cold. His indifference stung. More than I wanted to admit, this day wasn't just about Kelly. It was about rewriting the narrative of marriage we had grown up with. But how could I convince her that love was worth it when my own husband couldn't even be bothered to stand by my side then, as if the universe decided I needed more emotional chaos? I saw someone I never expected Mark for a second. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Mark and I had been childhood sweethearts, the kind of couple everyone assumed would end up together. We had grown up side by side, inseparable, our families practically blending into one another. But as we got older, we realized that love wasn't enough. Our dreams pulled us in different directions. and by the time college ended, so had we. I hadn't seen him since yet. Here he was standing in the middle of Kelly's wedding reception, looking just as surprised to see me. Megan, his voice held that familiar warmth, tinged with disbelief. "Mark," I breathed, shaking my head. "Wow. What are you doing here?" He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "My cousin is a friend of Frank's, got an invite and thought, why not?" I let out a soft laugh, still processing the moment. Not in my wildest dreams did I think I'd run into you here. Same here. He admitted, his gaze sweeping over me. "You look great." "Thanks." I glanced down at my dress, suddenly aware of how much effort I had put into. "Looking my best today, not just for Kelly, but for myself." "You look good too. Life treating you well." "It has its moments," he said with a smirk. "What about you?" Before I could answer, my ankle twisted slightly. The heavy dress and high heels were proving to be more of a challenge than I had anticipated. I struggled to regain my balance, hoping no one noticed but Frank. He didn't even glance my way. He was lost in his own world, oblivious to the fact that his wife was moments away from face-planting in the middle of the reception. Just as I felt myself tipping forward, strong hands caught me. "Well, I got you," Mark said. Studying me before I could fall, heat rushed to my cheeks as I clung to his arm. Mortified but grateful of all people of all moments. Why now, as Mark steadied me, a rush of emotions flooded through me for a moment. I was transported back in time, back to when we were young and inseparable. When love felt simple and full of possibilities, his touch, though brief, carried an old familiarity. And as we made eye contact, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. It was bittersweet. This reminded of what we had shared, of a connection that once felt unbreakable. Shaking off, the moment I glanced over at Frank, hoping maybe foolishly that he had noticed what had just happened. But there he was, stuffing his face with food, completely uninterested in anything else. My heart clenched with frustration. How could he be so indifferent? This was my sister's wedding, a day that meant so much to me. And he acted as if he was just another guest, not my partner, not someone who was supposed to stand by my side. His lack of involvement wasn't just frustrating, it was downright disrespectful. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. To talk to him, had to understand what was going on in his mind. Maybe there was a reason for his behavior, though right now it felt like sheer negligence. Meanwhile, Mark was the complete opposite. He had no obligation to be involved, yet here he was, helping me in every way he could, as if ensuring this wedding went smoothly was his personal responsibility in that moment. Mark felt more like family than Frank ever did. He moved with ease, stepping in wherever needed, offering help without being asked. As I made my way to check on Kelly, she greeted me with a wicked smile, her eyes twinkling with mischief, so she teased, crossing her arms. "You and Mark?" "Huh." I rolled my eyes, though I couldn't help but smile. "Oh, stop. It was nothing. I nearly fell. And he caught me." Kelly smirked. "Yeah, and then he suddenly decided to be the most helpful guy at the wedding. Coincidence." I let out a laugh. "Oh, come on. Don't start, Hugh's just being nice." "Uh-huh," she said, giving me a knowing look. "Well, whatever it is, it was definitely an impression. Maybe a fall was exactly what you needed." I scoffed, shaking my head. "You're ridiculous." We both burst into laughter, the kind of mindless, carefree giggles we used to share when we were kids. It felt good, like the old days when life wasn't so complicated, when we could just talk nonsense and laugh until our stomachs hurt, as if on cue Mark appeared, joining us just as our laughter died down. "What's so funny?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Kelly and I exchanged a glance, trying to stifle our giggles. "Nothing," I said, failing miserably to keep a straight face. Mark gave us a skeptical look. "Right? Nothing. You two are terrible liars." Kelly leaned toward him. "Let him just say your heroic rescue didn't go unnoticed." Mark chuckled, shaking his head, glad I could be of service, and just like that, we were laughing again. Looking at him, I couldn't stop smiling. Kelly, being her usual mischievous self, wasted no time in telling Mark exactly what we had been talking about. She grinned, as she shared how seeing us together reminded her of all those times we had spent hours in each other's company, lost in conversation, completely oblivious to the world around us. Mark chuckled, shaking his head. "Man, I miss those days," he admitted. "If I could go back and relive even one of those moments, I'd do it in a heartbeat." His words stirred something deep inside me, a warmth, a longing for the simplicity of the past. We had all changed, grown apart in different ways, yet standing there. Together, laughing and reminiscing, it felt as though no time had passed at all. The nostalgia settled over us like a comforting blanket wrapping. Us in memories we didn't even realize we had been missing. Kelly nudged me playfully. "Maybe we should make a PCT, set aside a weekend to just hang out, like old times. No responsibilities, no stress, just us." Mark grinned. "I'm in, but only if Megan promises not to fall into my arms every time we meet." I rolled my eyes, laughing. "Oh, please, you should be, thanking me for giving you a moment of heroism." Mark smirked. "Ah, so that's how we're spinning it." The teasing, the easy banter, it felt so natural. As the evening went on, Mark and I found ourselves working side by side, making sure everything was running smoothly, in between coordinating with the caterers and checking in on Kelly. We stole playful glances, exchanged inside jokes, and flirted in that effortless, almost unconscious way that made the night feel lighter. More fun at one point as I reached for a tray of champagne glasses. Mark leaned in and whispered, "You know, you're glowing tonight." I felt my cheeks warm. "It's probably just the stress." He smirked. "Or maybe you're just happy." I didn't know how to respond to that. Was I happy at this moment? Yes. But was it because of the wedding? Or was it because? For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. For a while, I completely forgot about Frank. That realization hit me when the music changed, and the DJ announced that it was time for everyone to hit the dance floor. Guests began moving, laughing, and swaying to the music, and as I watched couples take each other's hands, a small panic settled in. Was I supposed to dance with my husband? I glanced around, scanning the crowd. Where was Frank? My eyes darted across the room, searching for his familiar figure, but he was nowhere to be seen. Frowning, I pulled out my phone and called him straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still straight to voicemail. I refused to let Frank's absence ruin my mood. This was a big day, a joyous occasion, and I was determined to enjoy it. The music grew louder, the party became more vibrant, and soon I found myself lost in the moment. I laughed, I danced, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. I didn't need Frank to have a good time. I had my friends, my family, and the intoxicating energy of the celebration as the night carried on. The DJ announced the slow dance, calling all couples to the dance floor. I instinctively scanned the room, but of course Frank was nowhere to be found. A small pang of disappointment hit me. But before I could dwell on it, Mark appeared beside me, offering his hand with a familiar smirk. For old time's sake, he asked, his eyes twinkling under the soft lights. I hesitated for only a moment before taking his hand. "You definitely earned it after everything you did today." He grinned. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." As we stepped onto the dance floor, it felt like we were in our own little world. Mark led with ease, his hand firm against my waist, guiding me in a way that made me feel light and graceful. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and I caught glimpses of guests watching us with curious expressions, most of them not having seen Frank all evening. Probably assumed Mark was my husband. I could have corrected them. I could have explained that my actual husband was missing from his own sister's wedding. But what good would that do? It would only invite questions, speculation, and gossip that had no place on Kelly's big day. So instead, I simply smiled and let them believe whatever they wanted to believe. It was easier this way. Better to maintain the illusion than to let the truth overshadow my sister's happiness. When the wedding finally came to an end, I felt exhausted, yet oddly fulfilled. The night had been beautiful, filled with laughter, dancing, and memories I would cherish. But as I made my way to the hotel room, Frank and I were staying in reality, came crashing. Back the moment I stepped inside, I was met with the unmistakable stench of alcohol. Frank was slumped in a chair, a nearly empty bottle in his hand, his shirt wrinkled, and his tie loosened. He looked up at me with a lazy smirk, his eyes glassy and unfocused. "Where the hell have you been?" I demanded, crossing my arms. "I was looking for you all night." He let out a dry chuckle, tilting his head back against the chair. "I was right in front of you," he slurred, "but you were too busy flirting with your newly found old flame." I narrowed my eyes. "What the hell are you talking about?" Frank took another slow sip from the bottle before setting it down with an exaggerated sigh. "I saw you, Megan, dancing, laughing, looking at him like he was the only man." In the room, his gaze met mine, sharp despite his drunken state. "I didn't want to get in the way, so I just made it easy for you." I stared at Frank in disbelief after missing most of the wedding. After disappearing without a word, he had the audacity to stand there and blame me for everything. Anger bubbled inside me and I scowled at him. "You were the one who was missing Frank." I snapped. "You left me no choice but to rely on Mark, if that required a little flirting to keep him interested and helping me, then so be it." I did what I had to do. For a brief moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, but I was too caught up in my own emotions to fully process it. He let out a dry laugh. "Right? You had no choice." He shook his head, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I saw you, Megan. You weren't just asking for help. You were batting your damn eyelashes every time you wanted Mark to do something. I bet he loved every second of it." I stiffened, maybe. I had done that more than a few times to grab Mark's attention, but there was no way I was going to admit it. Now this was an argument, and I wasn't about to lose well. At least Mark actually helped, I shot back. "At least he was reliable, unlike you." Frank exhaled sharply, rubbing his face before looking back at me with a strange, almost resigned expression. "You know what, Megan?" His voice was eerily calm. "Once we get back home, I'm handing you divorce papers." I blinked. "What, I've seen it now?" He continued, his tone steady but firm. "I saw how happy you were tonight, how free, how light. I saw how you looked at Mark, how you laughed with him. I don't think I've ever seen you look at me like that." He sighed, almost as if the fight had drained out of him. "Get it? Now you were never truly happy with me." I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. "I don't want to hold you back anymore, Megan," he said softly. "I don't want you to feel stuck with me, an old soul who doesn't fit into your world. You don't have to suppress your wishes for me. You deserve to be happy." His words landed heavily, the weight of them sinking into me in a way I hadn't expected. I was shocked, saddened. But deep down, I knew he was right. It was a bittersweet moment. One that should have felt like a loss, but instead, all I felt was relief. Because as painful as it was, I knew this was the right decision. Mark was my past, and this new chapter 1 was stepping into. Without Frank was something I was very grateful for. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Frank was talking about ending our relationship over a little harmless flirting. It seemed ridiculous. How could he take something so minor and blow it out of proportion like this? "Frank, come on," I said, exasperated. "It was nothing, just harmless flirting. You really think I would throw away everything we have over that?" He didn't respond right away, just kept staring at me, his expression unreadable. "My feelings for you are real." I continued, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mark is just a friend. That's all. I have no interest in anything more with him." Frank let out a tired sigh, rubbing his temples. "You say that, Megan, but do you even hear yourself? If it was really nothing, why did it look like so much more? Why did it seem like you were happier with him than you've been with me in a long time?" I shook my head, trying not to let his words get to me. "Oh, overreacting," I said, keeping my tone as calm as possible. You're making a big deal out of something meaningless. We're both exhausted, and I really don't want to turn this into some long argument." He let out a dry chuckle. "Yeah, of course, just sweep it under the rock, right?" I ignored the sarcasm and tried a different approach. "Let and just sleep on it," I suggested gently. "We'll talk in the morning when we're both rested. Everything will feel different once we've had some time to clear our heads." Frank didn't say anything, but he didn't push back either, which I took as a good sign. I reached out and placed a hand on his. "Our relationship is strong enough to handle small things like this. We'll be fine." He looked at me for a long moment, then finally gave a small nod. "Yeah, sure, let in. Talk tomorrow." That was good enough for me. I was beyond exhausted from the endless organizing, the running around, and spending the entire day in heels. All I wanted was a hot bath and a long, deep sleep before we went to bed. I made sure to remind Frank that I loved him. "We're a team," I said softly, my head resting against his shoulder. "We get through this okay." He didn't say much in response, but he didn't pull away either. That had to count for something the next morning. I woke up much later than I had planned, stretching lazily before glancing at the clock. Frank was nowhere in sight, but I figured he had gone downstairs for breakfast, no big deal. I got ready quickly and headed to the dining area where I spotted Kelly and her husband chatting at a table. I scanned the room for Frank, but there was no sign of him anywhere. I even saw Mark sitting at a far-off table, and when our eyes met, we exchanged small smiles. A slight unease settled in my stomach, but I pushed it aside and turned to Kelly. "Hey, have you seen Frank this morning?" She frowned and shook her head. "No, I haven't. I thought he was with you?" I forced a smile. He probably just went for a walk or something. Still, something didn't feel right. I started searching the hotel, checking the lounge, the bar, and even the gym. But he was nowhere to be found. I asked the staff if they had seen him, but no one had any answers. Just as my worry began to build, I finally found him by the pool, sitting alone, staring at the water, lost in thought. "Frank," I called out, relief washing over me as I hurried toward him. He barely looked up as I reached his side. "I've been looking for you everywhere." He let out a slow breath but didn't say anything. I sighed and wrapped my arms around him, hugging him tightly. "You okay?" He hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yeah, just thinking." I pulled back slightly to look at him. His face was calm, normal even, which reassured me. "Well, I'm glad you're here." I was starting to get worried. He finally met my gaze, offering a small, almost unreadable smile. I smiled back. "I'm really excited for the reception today." He nodded again, and with that I left him there, feeling reassured. As I went to take one last check at the venue and decorations for the reception, as I was walking toward my room, I accidentally bumped into Mark. He grinned and asked, "Hey, do you have some time to catch up?" I was exhausted and just wanted to sleep, but I didn't want to disappoint him. Forcing a smile, I nodded. "Yeah, I can spare some time." What was meant to be a short conversation stretched into hours as we reminisced about old-time times and filled each other in on our lives. It was a pleasant surprise to reconnect with him after so long, and despite my fatigue, I found myself enjoying the easy conversation. When we finally said our goodbyes, I felt grateful for the unexpected but enjoyable chat. Realizing how late it had gotten, I rushed to my room to get ready for the reception. Frank was already dressed, adjusting his tie in front of the mirror. He barely looked at me as I walked in. "I just need 20 minutes to get ready," I told him, "then we can leave together." Frank glanced at me briefly before nodding. "Take your time. I'll be checking on the guests." I smiled, stepping closer to place a light kiss on his cheek. "Thanks for understanding. I won't be long." After quickly doing my hair and makeup, I joined Frank at the reception. As soon as he saw me, he smiled and said, "You look beautiful." His compliment sent a small rush of warmth through me, making me even more excited for the evening. I squeezed his hand in appreciation, hoping that whatever tension lingered from the previous night had faded. But as the evening progressed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Frank kept a subtle distance from me, his interactions polite but distant. It was as if he was avoiding me. I tried not to dwell on it. I didn't want to let his mood ruin my night, so I focused on enjoying the reception. I laughed with friends, danced, and soaked in the lively atmosphere if Frank wanted to sulk over something that was his choice later. When I returned to our room, I found him already asleep. I debated waking him up, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. Whatever was bothering him could wait. We'd be heading home the next day, and I'd rather have this conversation in a more familiar setting than in a hotel room. One more day, that's all I needed to wait the next afternoon. When we finally reached home, Frank went straight to the study and locked himself inside. I stood outside the door for a moment before gently knocking Frank. I called out, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk silence?" I sighed, pressing my forehead against the door for a brief moment. If he needed space, I'd give it to him. There was no point in forcing a conversation. When he clearly wasn't ready, I decided to rest up first and talk to him. After he had calmed down, I took a longer nap than usual, probably because of the exhaustion from the wedding events. When I finally woke up, I went to the study to check on Frank, but he wasn't there. Instead, I found a text from him. "I'll be out till late. Do whatever you want. Don't wait up for me." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a lump form in my throat. He wasn't just asking for space, he was pushing me away still. I decided to respect his need for time alone. Maybe he just needed to process things on his own. Forcing a conversation wouldn't help if he wasn't ready to talk, so I spent the rest of the evening trying to relax, distracting myself with a book and some music, but my mind kept drifting back to him. The next morning I woke up to an empty bed. Frank had already left for work. The cold shoulder he was giving me was unbearable, this silence, this distance. It was suffocating. I couldn't take it anymore. I made up my mind that I would talk to him no matter what. When he came home that evening, I was waiting for him. But before I could say anything, he pulled out an envelope and placed it on the table between us. "Here," he said flatly. "I've already signed them. Don't bother trying to change my mind." I frowned, my heart pounding as I reached for the envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it, and when I saw the words, "Divorce Papers," my breath caught in my throat. "Frank, what is this? What does it look like?" he replied coldly. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "Ooh, divorcing me just like that after everything." His expression remained unreadable. "I've made up my mind." Tears welled up in my eyes. But before I could say anything else, he turned and walked straight into the study, locking the door behind him. Panic surged through me. I ran after him and started banging on the door. "Frank, please just talk to me. You can't do this. Not like this. At least tell me why you're making such a huge decision without even giving me a chance to explain." Silence. I pressed my forehead against the door, my tears falling freely. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. I swear, Frank, there was nothing between me and Mark that you need to worry about. It was just seeing him after so long. It caught me off guard. That's all. My feelings for him are in the past. You are my present, my future." I waited, hoping, praying for a response. Nothing. Defeated, I slid down onto the floor, sobbing against the door the next morning. Frank finally joined me for breakfast. He sat across from me, his expression cold and detached. "You need to start packing your things," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. I swallowed hard, my hands gripping my coffee cup. "What I need more space. I have a lot of things and I don't have enough room for them," he said, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. I felt my chest tighten. "Frank, why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? We can talk about this." He cut me off, shaking his head. "I want to feel comfortable in my own house," he said. "Now that I have no one to share it with." I reached across the table and grabbed Frank's hand, my fingers tightening around his as desperation filled my voice. "Please, Frank, don't do this. Don't throw everything away over jealousy." My eyes searched his, hoping to find even a glimmer of the love we once shared. He sighed and pulled his hand away. "It's not just jealousy, Megan," he said, his voice heavy. "I saw you with him, hours and hours talking, laughing like nothing else in the world mattered. Like we didn't matter. I can't sit here and pretend I didn't see what I saw." Tears welled in my eyes as I shook my head. "Frank, it wasn't like that. Mark is just a friend. I care about you. I always have. Please don't mistake nostalgia for something more." He let out a less chuckle. "That's the thing, Megan. Maybe you don't see it, but I do. Maybe you don't even realize it, but you're still holding on to something. Something you never had with him, and I won't be the man standing in the way of it anymore." "No," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You're wrong. I love you. Frank, we can fix this, but—" He had already made up his mind. The next morning he stood by the front door, his arms crossed as he watched me gather my things. His expression was unreadable, but his words cut deeper than any knife ever could take. "Whatever you want," he said flatly. "But you can't stay here." I turned to him, hoping, praying that he would change his mind at the last second, that he would soften, reach for me, tell me that this was all just a mistake. But he didn't. He just stood there watching me pack up the life we had built together as if it meant nothing to him. As I stepped out of the house, carrying the weight of my shattered world, I felt like my entire life had crumbled in just a few days. A simple misunderstanding, a clash of egos, and my own foolishness had led to the end of something so beautiful. I had let my pride and reckless behavior flirting with Mark, even if only to make Frank jealous, cost me everything I wished more than anything that I could turn back time and fix my mistakes. I should have handled the situation differently. I should have been more open, more understanding, more careful with Frank's feelings. Now all I could do was live with the regret. It broke me to realize that the man I thought was strong and mature had chosen to end everything over something so small. My spending time with Mark, my harmless flirting, was that really enough to destroy a marriage, or had our bond always been this fragile, just waiting for the right storm to shatter it? It was a painful lesson, but one I had to learn. Moving forward, I knew I had to work on my communication, on being honest about my feelings. Instead of letting misunderstandings grow, I had to ensure that my next relationship, if I ever found the strength to love again, was built on trust, not insecurity. To those of you who have been with me through this, listening to my story, sharing in my pain, I just want to say this: never assume that love alone is enough. Never assume that your partner will understand everything. One said the tiniest thing, the smallest misstep, can unravel everything if left unchecked. Communicate, be honest. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.